Cinta, welcome
Yes.
to Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. And I'm just making sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. There's probably different versions of it depending on who you're speaking to.
Yes, I use Cinta professionally, but if you know Spanish or anyone in my family will say Cinta, but professionally it's easier to just say Cinta.
Cinta. Okay.
Interesting enough, I was in China about 2 weeks ago and they all were saying Cinta. So there
Really?
must be something in the sound that makes more sense to them
Right.
as
Okay.
Cinta.
That is
Yeah.
interesting. And so you're Spanish.
Yeah. I was born in Spain, but grew up in Los Angeles and through the American university system.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm
Thank you.
excited to have you on. I know that you know a few of the previous guests, like John Voss, who we were
hmm
just talking about. Looking forward to getting into your journey. You've had a really interesting career, and I think one of the themes that sort of stood out and reasons why I thought it would be great to have you on is because you've not had that sort of linear path that, like a lot of quality leaders, to get to that executive leadership level. You've spent time in different functions, right? So
Yeah.
just for the listeners, just give a very quick high level who you are right now, what your role is.
So right now I'm Senior Vice President of Quality and Regulatory CMC or CMC Regulatory. Under me, I have quality assurance, quality control, quality systems, and also CMC Regulatory because any manufacturing and quality work very hand in hand. So in New Amsterdam Pharma, where I am as head of quality, it made sense for my group to include that for all our submissions.
Okay. And I'm guessing maybe that goes back to your journey and career and your experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So talk us through the sort of start of your career, like how you got into science and how that sort of very quickly, like how your career evolved.
Well, science is really important to me. Supporting people in STEM is very important to me. It started early in high school, encouraged by my father to become a scientist, even though I didn't have two parents that were scientists.
Okay. Why did your dad want you to get into science?
He thought it was wonderful. How could you be better than being a scientist in any science? And he was a sociologist and a community college professor, and my mother a librarian, so they were very book people. But he thought science, and this is in the 80s, science was the way to go and the excitement in the world. And so I took that excitement without really knowing any scientists or engineers. I studied biophysics in university. From biophysics, I worked in laboratories, human growth factor, and also varicella zoster vaccine, which is the one that goes from chickenpox to shingles. And within that time in the laboratory, I wanted more. I love learning. And so because I had the physics background and electrical engineering type of mechanical laboratories from physics, I started working on a master's degree in mechanical engineering, thinking that's how I was going to go into life sciences and biomechanics and probably medical devices. Life changes because of my husband. We went across the country. I never finished. I was working on a thesis that was the architectural model of the heart and finite element analysis, but started a family, went across the country, started a family, and started working immediately. So I never finished that master's. So I think that's part of my story is many of your guests probably have higher degrees. Now I think it's expected for people to have, in the United States at least, master's degrees. There are many people that are immigrants that come and they have higher degrees. I am one of your examples that does not. And I'm very clear and open. When I taught at Tufts Veterinary School, I said I did not finish my master's. I was working with PhDs and MDs, and they're like, it's your experience. It's your experience in industry is what they were looking for when I was teaching a graduate level course there. So going back to school, starting in the Massachusetts area in Boston, it has so many opportunities. So when you say that my career has gone many different paths, it's true. Part of it is always just what doors open for you. So for me, it was at first pharma and then medical devices. Biologics started getting very exciting and novel technologies. And so I was able to, because of the early decades that I was in biotech and my background of biophysics crossing both disciplines, I was able to go in many different directions, go from pharma to medical devices, biologics, and back again. And now I'm back in pharma. am very happy back in chemistry. While biologics is very exciting, there are challenges. There's challenges in manufacturing, variability if you're a quality professional and quality control. There's challenges in the manufacturing of biologics, exciting challenges. But now I'm in it's a really nice, great place, great company, great people, and
Yeah,
back in
awesome.
pharma.
Pharma, yeah. So looking back towards the start of your career, did you have a mapped out, defined career path, or was it more of a case of let's just go with the flow?
I get asked that, but no. And probably, what advice I would give younger people is, yes, that would be great to have a clear mapped out vision. I think when I was studying physics, I thought I was going to get a PhD and become a professor. That's all I knew was you study and then you become a professor. I think it's great to have a map. And I do ask people, I mentor people through Society of Women Engineers, just through networking, through RAPs. And I do ask them, what is their 5-year plan? But if somebody had asked me my 5-year plan, even if I had one at the time, it changes. So I think flexibility is very important, knowing how things change, adapting to how the industry changes and your careers, and then taking every opportunity that you have.
You've gone from quality, sort of engineering quality,
Mhm.
reg, done CMC as well. Was that intentional to go into different functions?
Well, same thing. You start in university, you know about R&D. You think that is the key thing to do is be in research and development. So I did
Yeah.
start at a very small startup in Boston and R&D. From there, I went partly because of opportunities. It was the early 90s or mid 90s, and jobs were a little bit more scarce. It was harder to get a job in regular in R&D. So I became a validation engineer. That's when I met John Voss, by the way. So
Brilliant. Okay.
being a validation engineer, and that was it was so nice to see the engineering, the manufacturing, the equipment, understanding processes from that. That has definitely contributed to my life and has helped a lot. And then just like core skills, but also it's looking for opportunities for that next job, and moving to quality made sense. It made sense in the job market of what was available and what was, you knew you could always find a job in quality, but it also made sense for my personality. And I think that's very important for people to know. What do they enjoy? Do you enjoy being in the laboratory 8 hours a day and working on details and knowing the details and being very good at what you do? Or do you want to have a big picture, see the life cycle of a product? For me, seeing the life cycle of the product, supporting the other brilliant people that there are, and I've worked with really brilliant scientists and engineers. And so quality is a support role. And are you okay with a support role? And are you okay with and knowing what it is. And for me, being in a boardroom, explaining what we're doing, what's our vision, having the big picture again from development work, really, because quality, you don't start with research, but the end of development work, all the way to commercial, post commercial approval, quality items that we do and tasks that we do is important and really exciting to me. So I enjoy that.
So what was it about your personality there? I get that you enjoyed the visionary style and being okay, comfortable in that sort of supporting the entire business. But what was it specifically around your personality that you mentioned was aligned you to more of a quality facing role?
Yeah, the big picture. Really the big picture, seeing where we're going and how, and being closer to the end product and closer to the patient facing part, because quality goes all the way to complaints and then you bring it right back from the beginning. So with complaints, your patient, not that anybody loves complaints, but you are doing more of that patient facing. And then such as currently under my group and in my last company, we had clinical quality, and clinical quality is also very patient oriented. And seeing how a product is being used is exciting. That's when I say it's exciting, that's what I mean. It's probably the patient oriented part and the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think when you look at the sort of industry at the moment for young quality leaders going through what you were going through years ago? How has it evolved? How's the industry changed now versus when you were growing up in your career?
I think the key is I was able to move from industry to industry, indication to indication. Now people become specialists. They might be only working with solid dose or prefilled syringes, biologics, because biologics are complex. So then you specialize in that type. It could also be indications. So if you're doing CMC, regulatory, clinical QA, some
Yeah,
aspects of quality, knowing your indication. So if it's cardiovascular versus orthopedic, there's
yeah,
differences. So I think the industry has changed that way. People are getting more specialized, either by product or indication. So
yeah,
I was fortunate, but I think then I read into your question like a two-parter for a young leader, changing from that task-oriented individual contributor in quality, moving to leadership is something to be thoughtful about and understand that while it's very important to be task oriented and get those details done, a leader has to go one step bigger, further, the ultimate where it is, product safety, patient safety. And so that is what I would advise all the people you work with and other people that I've mentored. That is the step to leadership.
yeah, yeah. Going back to your point around specializing, I agree. I think there's a lot more. You might go down a GCP route, GMP route, or you might go down a specific modality route. Do you think that's a good thing for the industry? And the second part of that question, what is the knock-on effect to that in years to come?
Yes. For personally, I think if you're more flexible, then you have more opportunities.
Yeah,
So if the more skills you have in anything. So I'll tell you a quick story from my past. So as a young engineer, as a quality engineer at CR Bard, I went on an audit, came back, they had layoffs and reshuffling. And so I was a quality engineer. When I came back, I had a new position. I was in regulatory. They had put me as a regulatory specialist, different product too, but as a regulatory specialist. And in my 30s, I was like, what? How could somebody rename me? I am an engineer. And I just couldn't see it. I had a woman at the time who's the head of QC. She said, this is an opportunity. Take it as an opportunity. You'll learn regulatory. It's a great career path. I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. I found another job and continued my path in quality. But I think that that woman, Amita Shah, in case she listens to your podcast, but she was right. And I've told her now, I think about 2 years ago, I told her, you were right back then, so many decades ago, that I was being stubborn about this opportunity that was given to me. Everything worked out fine, but I definitely had this identity of who I was and what I did. And I would say be flexible. So that's the personal thing. How it affects the industry where people are more and more specialized. I think it needs to be. Our medical devices are more complex because you have software in the medical devices. There's now AI, there's robot controlled surgeries, there's all kinds of things like that. And then indications are more complex the more we know about the body. So for pharmaceuticals, and then biologics are really special and you need to have certain skills
yeah,
to be able to understand
yeah,
and to be able to be a quality that supports biologics.
yeah, yeah. Understood. So you've been into you went into RA from sort of QA engineering into regulatory. You then done some consulting, and then you're now in that all-encompassing QA reg
Yes.
CMC position. So you've done sort of full circle, got everything under your belt now. What do you for someone who's done a bit of everything, how do you perceive the different functions, and when you look at the state of the industry, how do you see the strength of different functions collaborating across the industry, across QA, manufacturing, CMC, regulatory at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's working out really well. People are more quality minded, scientifically minded, cross functional teams. Everybody recognizes it. We now mostly work remote, or many people work remote. So it's collaborating with contract manufacturers, other vendors, CROs for clinical studies. And a lot of it is remote, but it's large teams in those meetings, and then going off and doing your individual work that you need to do to support those cross functional teams. roles and responsibilities is very important in defining that. You did touch on one part that I didn't in my summary of how I ended up where I am as a head of quality at New Amsterdam. I was also a consultant for 17 years. So, and that's what you see in my resume and LinkedIn. So I was at Biotransplant that had sold, gone bankrupt. I stayed on to help with due diligence for selling technology off. And it was a really interesting experience to be part of due diligence. And I thought, okay, I could consult. Also, I had young children. And so I chose to consult for lifestyle. And also, it gave me the benefit of seeing many different companies and tech and products and people and groups and seeing how groups went. I was a consultant for 17 years. It was wonderful. But during the pandemic, someone reached out to me, Chris Manser, who's now of Pioneer GMP, I think he is, but he was part of a middle-sized consulting company. And he asked me to come on a project and pitch a project in Texas because I was living in Texas. I had moved from Boston to Texas. And at the time, early 2020, Texas didn't want people coming from other states for their manufacturing. And I knew the manufacturing was probably related to a COVID vaccine. And so we pitched that project. I was able to help them for PAI. During those conversations, Chris offered me a job and he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. I became the vice president of consulting services with 300 indirect reports and eventually 12 offices around the nation. And that gave me, I had been in leadership roles in volunteer, I was on crew in college, but this gave me a true leadership jump from being an independent consultant to leadership. And he saw something in myself that I didn't realize I really wanted or could be really good at. It was a great opportunity that someone else gave me to be a leader. And that started then being a leader, a vice president, moving on to be a vice president of quality and regulatory at the next company, and now as senior vice president of quality and CMC reg. But that consulting is where I got that GCP regulatory experience, the cross-functional teams.
Yeah. And what was it, do you think, that he saw in you?
You're going to have to get him on the podcast. I think I had worked with him when we were both validation engineers early in our careers, and we kept in touch. I brought him into several projects of mine. We collaborated throughout the years, so he saw how I worked, how I was in meetings, how I interacted with everybody, how I worked with those cross-functional teams. And how I work with people is that I respect their talents, their skills, what they bring to the table. I make sure not to micromanage their skills and everything that everyone else brings to the table.
Yeah, awesome. So looking ahead now then, so you've done so many different things. You've worked in different modalities, different areas of science, different functions. You've done the consulting route. And I, as you know, I recruit contractors, consultants, as well as full-time hires. So I really see the benefit in going into consulting because you, like you say, you do get a breadth of experience in a relatively short space of time and get to experience different ways of working, different cultures. How's your, what are you excited about now looking ahead, in your role and what's ahead of you?
Well, this last year was all about building my team, and now it's going to be executing, launching globally, many different submissions and work that we're doing. So really where I am now is perfect. I have incredible leadership. Our CEO is very ethical and the whole company is scientifically based. So I'm just going to continue doing more where we're building the team and building the work and the responsibility. But my immediate goal is then strengthening the supply chain. I think supply chain is a big thing right now. Also, the voice of quality. To me, everybody in a company is quality. They have to represent quality. It's kind of the Toyota mindset, but it's verbalizing what is quality, having everybody understand their role and responsibility to product quality and patient safety. And so that's the immediate stuff, strengthen the supply. But we're also getting into AI. We have so much data. let's say stability data. How do you use these AI tools in a regulated industry? How do you still have control over it? And so we are looking at how to use AI to visualize the data so that you have better graphs and quicker graphs and work smart and still have oversight. So you have to have human oversight. That is what I'm looking for in the immediate future. But now, if you turn from what we were talking about at first, what is your 5-year plan or things like that? I think once somebody gets to the level of an executive level or senior vice president type of level, maybe the next thing, the next company, the next role to contribute would be at the board level. However, quality, you rarely have a quality representative at the board level. So you'll have to check in with me in that in a few years or 10 years. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting though, but like, what are your thoughts on that though? The fact that quality is often underrepresented at the board level. There's not huge amounts of chief quality officers. A
Right.
head of quality at VP or SVP level may report to a CTO or a COO or CEO. What are your general thoughts on why that is? And
Yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity for boards. I think you do have representation for manufacturing, which is excellent because you need to understand, as I said before, the supply chain, the challenges that manufacturing may have. But quality gives this insight also to the challenges of manufacturing and supply chain and distribution and how all those cross-functional teams work together. So for operations, I think it is a missed opportunity to not put somebody in quality. But as people used to think quality, and I think it's changed a lot how people used to think of quality as the police, it's also the more conservative voice probably in the room is the quality professional. It's talking about risk and things. So I think that would help a board. It's just another voice, another point of view that would be useful. We may see more people representing at the board level and those higher
yeah,
decisions.
yeah, I hope so. You're right. I think there is a bit of a missed opportunity in a lot of organizations to get more of a voice, or a stronger voice at least, from the quality lens. But it's something that I speak about with a lot of people is, what is your career path beyond vice president of quality or SVP of quality? What's next? How do you get into a real C-suite role, or is consulting the next thing that you do?
Right. A lot of people do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
retire.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, but it's a topic, that a conversation that I have a lot of times with people. You mentioned AI. It's really hard to not have a conversation at the moment without AI coming up. How are or the organization using AI to sort of make your day-to-day lives
Yeah.
more efficient?
Um, if you had asked me about a year ago the role of AI in biotech or pharma, I would have said to search the next molecule. And since then, I've seen it also used for complex disease paths to determine a better protocol and where do your endpoint studies and things like that. And I think it's powerful for that development work. Once you get into manufacturing and quality using AI, you have to be careful and ensure that there is still a human oversight because AI can get things wrong. There's artifacts in AI and we have to all be aware of that. So if I take data that has already been reviewed and verified, then that data could be used to help us make reports, presentations, do the visual of what that data looks like. But I would be very hesitant to say that it's used for analysis. It could be used to find trends, very powerful because we are talking about large data models. But I think there's still, for us, I know there's procedures that need to be put in place, guardrails and boundaries of how we use AI. And I know I'm personally not there, and I'm not sure if, you know, how much the industry is there yet.
Yeah, I think it'd be like you say, every 6 months. If we have the conversation in 6 months' time, I'm sure there'll be
Yes.
new things or new ways that you're utilizing it. But it is evolving so quickly. But yeah, you always, at the same time, from a quality lens, you do need that human element to get you the from 90% to 100% for the way there. Cinta, I usually end with some quick fire questions to round off the conversation. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna throw some at you. If you were to sort of go back to the start of your career and speak to your younger self, what advice would you give Cinta starting out her career?
It's all going to work out. And really, to anybody listening, it's all going to work out. Being flexible and where you think you're going to be, just evolve with your opportunities and the people you meet. I was good at networking, and so just keep up the networking. My current job I got from networking. It was people that I knew that I had previously worked with. And we spoke about AI. There's a lot of AI in resume writing. There's a lot of AI in searches now, right? And for getting jobs. But people are overwhelmed with all the resumes coming in. So that word of mouth makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Um, if you were to speak to somebody who was in the middle of their career and um, maybe have had a non-linear path and gone into different things, and they're just not sure, they don't have a 5-year plan, or they don't really have any certainty around what direction their career is going to go. What advice would you give to them?
Stay curious. You know, my last job, as I was looking, I also interviewed with a company that was doing software and robotic surgeries. And that would have excited me as well and been interesting. I like novel technologies. So really, if you had a nonlinear path, look at the parts that gave you the most joy and then follow that, because I'm still having fun 30 plus years in the industry. I have a lot of fun with what I do. I feel very good about it. And I would hope anybody else mid career is not feeling burnt out and they're having fun and curious about the science.
Yeah, awesome. Who's been the biggest inspiration to you in your life, and that could be either personally or professionally?
Well, I had mentioned my father. He was definitely key in enjoying this. He passed away 26 years ago, but every step I take, I'm like, oh, he would have really liked this. He would have been really proud or like that. So I would say he definitely was an inspiration for the start. But what I have is kind of like a board of directors that are my mentors, and I check in with them every once in a while. I call them my board of directors. They may not know that they are in my mental board of directors. But as I said before, the networking is really important. But going back to those mentors that have inspired you as leaders that were very good with people, managing the teams, I check in with them, see where their paths went, and often they aren't linear as well.
Yeah,
So they
very good.
have always inspired me. Those people.
Awesome. And final question: what one piece of advice would you give to aspiring quality leaders?
Leaders especially is as you move into leaders, your success has been task oriented and as an individual contributor. Your success as a leader now will be not to micromanage the people under you with those task oriented processes, but you need to know what's going on. So you need to move from task oriented to big picture. And for aspiring leaders, keep that in mind.
Brilliant. Cinta, thank you so much. I think that's been a really interesting, like you said, it's been a non-linear journey. You've had a different route, which is not so typical for a lot of the guests that I've had. And I speak to more and more people who are wondering about what else is beyond their role, whether going into a different route will benefit them in their career longer term. So you're an example of somebody where that has really, you've gone from different routes into an executive position, so it shows that it's not just about being a specialist in a particular area, but really working on yourself, your development alongside the technical skills, and being a good all-rounder. There's a lot of value in that. So thank you for sharing your journey, and yeah, I wish you all the best for the year ahead.
Thank you, Amish. It's been a pleasure, and I'm really glad we connected like this. So thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Have a
Thank
good one.
you. You too.